I'm on the left side. I'm on the left side. I'm on the left side of the screen. Can we
Doesn't
do
matter.
that? Is that?
Watch this. No way. You think he doesn't want to win, Dan?
Hello and welcome back to an episode of Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills, and today I'm joined by Sam Williams
Gentlemen,
and Bruce Fitzpatrick.
Good day.
Bruce, you're up in the sunny Midlands for this podcast, I see.
Today was absolutely dreadful day of weather, really. I mean, it wasn't dreadful. I just shouldn't overstate it, but it was certainly quite bleak, and some Scots would say dreek. But yes, I am indeed in the Midlands, not far geographically from you, gentlemen. What a weekend of golf. I mean, it is fair to say it's the biggest event in golf, isn't it, really? And I know we don't cover loads and loads of tour stuff, but this is one that, quite frankly, needs a bit of a big debrief on, really. I was glued to the TV.
Good. Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? I mean,
I'm not sure I'd want to be there. Gonna throw
Really?
out there. I'm not sure I'd like to be at the venue.
I had a cheeky little bit of FOMO, I must admit. You know,
I think
Yeah,
I'd be a
watching
bit
it,
intimidated.
flicking onto social media occasionally, or probably far too regularly. And I
think
thought it bloody does look good. It really did look good.
Yeah, no, I'm more with you, Sam. I mean, I think, if you got media access and you were able to get inside the ropes and walk up next to it, I think it would be amazing. But I totally take your point there, Tom. If you were just a sort of regular spectator, I could imagine it would be absolute bedlam trying to watch a shot. And in fact, a couple of friends who were there did sort of say you had to, go maybe 6 holes ahead and sit in a grandstand for a bit just to try and catch a bit of it. I guess it's one of those events where there's loads of different types of ticket. There's obviously lots of corporate hospitality. So I could imagine it'd be quite difficult to watch as a sort of regular spectator. But yeah, the atmosphere looked off the charts.
Well, we will probably, I mean, look, I don't want to speak for him, but our roving reporter, Charlie, who's been doing some wonderful written pieces, I'm sure he's going to pop something up on the blog in the next few days or so about takeaways from the event, because he was on the ground and he was in Rome. And actually, I thought, outside looking in, I thought, God, how are people going to get out of Rome and go and watch the golf, which is where most people seem to be staying? I thought it was going to be absolute carnage. And no one from anyone that I know that was there has said, oh, it's complete bedlam. Like, it all seemed to run brilliantly well behind the scenes, purely on the basis I haven't heard of that lot. The only thing I do know is it's a bit of a mad scrum trying to get back, which is why I haven't had a huge amount of time to catch up with Charlie today. Trying to sort of, you can imagine trying to get all those people out on flights back to the US and UK and places like that. So, but no, it looked really good, didn't it? I mean, those scenes with the sun setting on the Saturday evening, it was absolutely glorious. It looked really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been having quite the time if I had my camera available on those sunsets. It looked quite dreamy, didn't it? But did any of us see this coming? Really?
I didn't see the first 2 days coming. I mean, actually, if you put I've not done any stats for this pod, but I believe we haven't lost a home bout of singles match play in the Ryder Cup for quite some time. Might be wrong on that. Happy to be corrected.
I'm pretty sure in 2010 at Celtic Manor, that's when he got a bit squirrely, didn't it? McDowell had to beat Hunter Mahan, and I'm pretty sure we lost the singles there. It was
7-5
close.
in the singles at 2010.
We lost it.
Yes.
Yeah.
7-5 to US.
Okay.
Yeah.
But either way, I think it felt like it got a bit squirrely, to use your expression, Bruce.
Yeah.
On the Sunday. Maybe it did. Maybe that was just distribution of where the points were coming out. But certainly by close of play Saturday, it was like, didn't see anything like this coming. And they did quite well to get in at whatever it was, 10.5, 5.5, didn't they, after the 4 balls and the foursomes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that whole Cantlay. I mean, that had potential to go 2 ways. I think we need to delve into Cantlay at some point, but that had potential to go 2 ways. That patch that was 45 footer on 18 for the US. I mean, I had like feelings of Medina when that went in. It was like, this could be like the turning point. I think it's only the Europeans. I don't know whether it's a lifetime of being Welsh, but it's only the Europeans that can be like five points clear and still completely certain you're going to lose. You know what
Just
I
the
mean?
European pessimism.
Yeah, it's just I was certain that we weren't going to win those singles. And to be honest, it looked rosy on Sunday morning. Like we were up through pretty much 5 of the 6 matches in the first sort of 6-7 holes, and then all of a sudden, Squirrel Town.
Just started to
the
slide a
Squirrel,
bit,
the
didn't it?
Squirrel and Clyde.
Started to
Well, it
slide.
looked so good,
Yeah.
good, and you've got some real tight matches in there, haven't you? If you look at, if you just dive into the singles, we can go into the drama in a bit, but if you look at the Rahm match, you look at the Rose match, look at the Fitzpatrick match, any of those could have gone another way. Really, I think. Ignore that.
I felt Rose. I felt
That's-
Rose was always going to probably struggle against Cantlay because he was just the
He did put up a good fight.
man
though.
of
But
form. He
it could
did
have
put up a hell of a
flipped
fight.
and been game over, couldn't it? Similarly, if we hadn't got off to the hot start we did, it could have all played out radically different, I think.
Yeah, I think what I would say about the singles is they sort of went the way you'd expect them to on paper, or as you might expect they would if you were literally just going up OWGR rank by and large. So Scheffler and Rahm could have gone either way because they're sort of world number 1 against world number 3. They halved. Hovland beat Morikawa. McIlroy beat Sam Burns. Hatton obviously beat Brian Harmon. Fleetwood then beat who was Fleetwood playing?
He was playing Rickie Fowler.
Rickie Fowler. So they kind of all went the way you'd expect they would. And then like Lowry and Spieth, I felt they were both a bit wild and were obviously wild card picks, but they didn't play probably their best games during the week. They were slightly less consistent. They ended up halving. So it ended up actually being quite evenly sort of matched probably. And it wasn't inconceivable, I think, on Saturday night when that draw came out to see Morikawa beating Hovland and to see Harmon open winner beating Hatton. It just it actually all kind of went the way that you'd probably expect them. The only slight shock was maybe Bobby Mack beating Wyndham Clark. But by and large, they all went the way of the world ranking points.
But having said that, we might as well stick to a WGR. I mean, sticking on the Tom Mills world number 1s thing, and world number 1s just don't win Ryder Cups, just fact.
Pat on the back for that bit of research, by the way, Tom. That really helped Team Europe, I think.
I think so. Well,
On
it was
Friday
just
morning.
that extra spring in the step that they required.
Where does Scheffler's performance stand, Mills?
Well, here we go. So
of all-time worst world number 1 performances.
I mean, I'd love to do that. I mean, Christ, I've still got that. I could look at the spreadsheet. So let's do that quickly. I'll fill while I'm doing this. But he did not win a single match this year. So he went 0-2-2. So he got 1 point because he had two halves or ties.
Did he not win the Saturday afternoon?
He wasn't played. He was rested.
Of course he was. Yeah, he got absolutely hosed.
So world number 1 performances. So let's work out what this would have been. Where would he fit? 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 2. He would have been the worst ever.
That is an all-time worst world number 1 performance.
The worst before that, the only person to get 1 point out of... So Woosnam got 1 out of 4 in 1991 at Kiowa. And DJ got 1 out of 5. But they both won a match. They won their singles. So
It shows you
So
that.
DJ's technically
doesn't
worse,
it?
though, isn't he? If you're going on a strict points percentage,
no, yeah, okay.
DJ was
I'll
1
take
out of 5. Scheffler was 1 point out of 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, you digress. I mean, look,
No, but I'm just saying, like, Scheffler was absolutely shocking. He hit that 9 and 7 on. I know he cried about it, but like 9 and 7 with Brooks. That's a record that's going to take some beating. And it'll never be beaten. It'll never be beaten.
It is a pretty
It
won't.
incredible.
What could it be, 10 and 8 or 9 and 8? The only two things that
margin,
could
isn't
beat
it?
I reckon if you and I teed up Sam against Hovland and Aberg on a Saturday
that's
morning and just tried to literally just kept that in the front view of it, just think, could we get past the 12th?
If we can just find 5 birdies on the front 9, 5 pars rather on the front 9, we're probably going to last past the 12th, aren't we?
I think everything that was on YouTube though beforehand would show that for mere mortals that nobody gets bars in that golf course.
Well, what was the thoughts on the reaction? Like the post-mortem, I thought it was quite noticeable how much the US side were talking about schedule and timing not working for them. I was quite surprised how much they laboured that a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm overreading into that a little bit too much.
We're
But
jumping around a bit. Are we gonna go from performance to reaction? Is that what we're doing? Then going to go back to
how it's your podcast, Tom? You're
Well, no,
the host. This is your job as the host.
Well, you've moved us on. I feel like it's the people's podcast, but more than that, like we can go to reaction. We can go. Should we do captains? Should we talk about
let's go captains now. Let's go. Well,
Okay.
let's. Have you done on performances? I mean, I think.
Well,
let's talk about some of the
a lot to
performances.
dissect there on performance, isn't there?
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want to maybe talk about some of the people that we sort of put our neck out for a little bit? I mean, in particularly Aberg, who seemed to his name seemed to change throughout the course of the weekend. I don't know if you noticed, it started going Oberg towards the end.
Yeah, it did. I noticed that.
Which happens with some of these emerging talents. They sort of like find a different way of pronouncing it. I can't remember. I haven't got another example that springs to mind. But anyway, he came out hot. I think he was played heavily, wasn't he? I mean, did he do all 5 matches, Tom?
No.
He benched on the Friday afternoon or something.
Yeah, he didn't play football. He only got 2 of 4. 1-2 lost 2.
Yeah,
actually, on the topic of performances, just thinking back to our previous pod, you guys felt that Aberg would be quite a notable performer. I think you thought he might be the best performer for Team Europe, Sam, and you thought he'd be the worst performer for Team Europe, Mills. And he's actually sort of dead middle, really. I think it was quite a decent rookie performance, not one of the all-time great rookie performances like a Thomas Peters or an Anthony Kim, but he's gone out and won a couple of points. Didn't play great in the 4 balls on Saturday afternoon. And to be fair, he's been drawn against a 5-time major winner. So that was always going to be a stretch, playing against a fairly fresh Brooks Koepka, who's had a great season. I thought his performance was just, solid.
I think he did embarrass himself today. Like, I think he was... You get, like you say, you get the rookies that are like stand out and you get the rookies that just get like nothing. I think that was solid. I think he'll come away with it with a lot of confidence. He's obviously going to be in a lot of Ryder Cups. Like, there's a lot of talk about it. Aberg, Ludwig. And, to be in that environment so early into a professional career, I think it's solid. Like, he seemed like he fit in. It didn't seem like he shouldn't be there. So, and he seemed to, like, he played well on Sunday. He just got outplayed. He missed a couple of short ones, but we're all capable of doing that, aren't we? So, whereas
it was quite interesting. You look at Robert McIntyre, who, again, you can only. There's so much of the narrative around the commentators. Scheffler was another one. Every time he had a putter in his hand, it was like they were talking him out of the putt. And Bob Mack was exactly the same. It was the narrative there was he felt like he was perhaps on a stage too big for him, or he was
it was like he was a competition winner
with it to begin, and then it was exactly, that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah,
they were talking about him like he was a competition winner.
Yeah,
and then the guy, okay, maybe he had a good partner in some of the matches and on the Friday and the Saturday, but then put on a hell of a performance against Wyndham Clark. But I thought that was a really tough draw for him to go out last, actually, because if there was a bit more if we threw a few matches away or things went slightly differently, that could have been like the ultimate pressure on his shoulders. I was amazed he went out last, if I'm honest.
I was really disappointed. I'm only going to go short on this one, Bruce, so you can dive in. But I was really disappointed that as soon as the Ryder Cup was secured, they literally just stopped all TV coverage. So you couldn't see any of what was going on with Bob Mack.
Yeah, it was crap, wasn't it? That really was.
He suddenly was 1-2. Oh, he's won. I was like, oh, what the hell? They were all square a minute ago. It was just no. It was.
You didn't see him play 15 or 16, which are 2 holes that he won. And then you could kind of just about saw him and Clark shaking hands on 17. I agree with you guys. I mean, I caught a bit of BBC 5 Live radio coverage because I was in the car on Sunday morning. And the commentators were, doing the absolute number on Scheffler's putting, which I thought was probably a bit unkind. But I felt the American press was pretty unkind towards Bob Mack, actually. Whereas the guy, okay, it's through the European point system that he's qualified, but he pushed Rory the whole way at the Scottish Open, and he's a very, very good player. And I just felt Yeah, maybe it was more the American
Competition winner.
commentary that was
was.
worse than the British commentary. But like he's come away with 2.5 points out of 3. Like he's unbeaten in his first Ryder Cup, and yet there's
And-
Americans out there who like, yeah, you know, if he never plays in another Ryder Cup again, which he may not, then he can say he's been unbeaten in a Ryder Cup. And it's like, hang on, like I just don't know if I
Unreal,
really
isn't
buy
it?
into that he's out of his depth. Like, yeah, he struggled on Friday afternoon. He contributed well for the first 8 holes, and then I think Rose sort of carried him round. But he, you know, won a few holes on Saturday, that's for sure. And he beat Wyndham Clark, US Open champion. Now, admittedly, Wyndham
player in the world.
Clark.
Best player in the
Wyndham,
world.
oh, I know. Yeah. I mean, that is the definition of aging like milk, isn't it? That comment is just so bad, isn't it? You know, when you look back at it. Funnily enough, I'm not one to really dive into the stats too much, especially on something like this, but yeah, it's probably more your arena, Mills. But someone did share the data golf breakdown of strokes gained for the Ryder Cup. I don't know if you guys have seen it. And again, you got to take it with a pinch of salt, or maybe a handful of salt, given that there's match play and it's a different format to what we usually associate the strokes gained statistics with. But Wyndham Clark, by the looks of things, was the worst player at the Ryder Cup on a strokes gained basis.
Really?
Yeah. Negative 6.92 strokes across his matches, which is pretty tough going. In comparison, you look at Hovland, who was the leader. He was plus 9.67.
Yeah, he was just like
I mean, he was just on a different level, wasn't he? But
He was just playing out of his mind, wasn't
Yeah.
he?
I've got while we're there, I've got one stat for you, just one. Who had the highest available? Who had the highest win percentage or point percentage based on what they were available to do on being picked?
Hatton, Rory.
Bob Mack, 83%.
Hmm.
Whereas
Yeah.
Rory went 4 out of 5, 80%. So the competition winner's done okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
There is just so much ignorance when it comes to some of these things on the commentary booth, don't they? They get a narrative and they just run with it.
It's like
We're guilty
Hovland's
of it the same.
chipping. Like that, I think they've just crested that brow, but it's like every time Hovland's got a wedge in his hand, they're like, "Oh God, this is going to be shocking, isn't it? This is just, oh God, what's he going to do from here?" And then he like fizz one in, and was like, got lucky there, didn't he? Maybe because he had one bad chip in, 2018, and suddenly
He didn't have a great
No,
short
I buy
game.
into that.
He
He's
did- yeah.
transformed his short game. I don't know if you guys know the story of it. He's working with a guy called Joseph Mayo. I'm going to go down a little technical rabbit hole because I think this stuff is actually fucking brilliant. But he started working with Joseph Mayo. I don't know if it was the end of last season or the start of this season, and the guy has literally transformed his short game. There's a great comment that Mayo put up when he was working with Hovland back at the Masters, and a journalist came over and could see Hovland just gouging the turf, just getting really steep on these chip shots around the chipping green at Augusta. And the journalist was like, oh my God, this guy's like committing a war crime to this amazing turf at Augusta. And Joseph Mayer was like, yeah, all part of the process. I guarantee you, in the next sort of 6 to 8 months, this guy is going to become one of the best chippers in the world. And sure enough, the guy's short game is absolutely mustard.
He's still really steep, but he's moving all of his body weight forward, so he's getting a shallow strike on it.
Yeah, he's still very steeper. He's kind of bucking the trend of you need to be nice and shallow into the ball and have very little shaft lean and create a nice big wide margin for error, which actually there's a lot of scrutiny of that approach now. People are thinking that's kind of doesn't really stack up. And Hovland's just found a method with Joseph Mayer that really works. And, if the guy carries on doing what he's doing, he's going to be world number one because his long game has always been superb. And this week he's gained a couple of shots around the green. The only person who I think's topped that clearly is Fleetwood, whose short game is off the charts. But yeah, I mean, Hovland is transformed. So I kind of can give the commentators a bit of pass on that. Like historically, he's been a pretty poor chipper, but now he's absolutely mustard. And it's exciting to see what could be in store next year if he carries on going the way he's going.
That was the guy I watched at Hoylake when he was in that practice bunker, leaving it in his shadow for about 20 minutes. And I was watching the exchange between them. It was cool. Like, this guy was clearly speaking with huge authority. The outcome at the time didn't look spectacular, but Christ, he was good this weekend.
Yeah.
I thought Hatton was short game was pretty sound. I thought Hatton was pretty sound in general. And him and Rahm was pretty decent combination, actually. I wasn't so certain when I read it, but I thought they were pretty good.
There was a great
Yeah.
comment in the press conference after. I don't know if you saw it because he they squeezed a half, didn't they, out of Koepka and Scheffler? No, sorry, that was Højgaard. It was no, that was it. Sorry, it was Saturday morning. That was it. Saturday morning, Hatton and Rahm, I think, had won their foursomes match. And he was then asked about his behavior the previous day when he and Højgaard squeezed a half out of Koepka and Scheffler, because I don't know if you guys remember it. Koepka was like, it was petulant. He was slamming on the board and pouting.
Hit the board with his fist, didn't he, or something?
And they said, what do you reckon to that,
yeah.
John? Yeah, they said to John in his press conference on the Saturday morning, what do you reckon to that? And he was like, well, I'm not going to pretend that I'm a, absolute example of how to conduct yourself on the golf course. And to be fair, my partner this morning probably wouldn't say the same about himself either. Obviously, talking to Hatton, they had a bit of a banter about that. Hatton was like, sort of steady on, like, speak for yourself. But they were like a really fiery pairing, and I think it worked quite well. Like, they both get pretty angry on the golf course. But
Hatton told the whole presser to F off.
Did he?
Yeah, I mean, it was in jest, but it was like, what did he say? Which one of you is better at swearing? He was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, John can swear in Spanish as well. I mean, I like to swear. And then he's like, well, who doesn't like to swear? Fuck off. Literally, just in the presser.
I mean, that's unlike Tyrrell to lower the
lady
tone,
went,
isn't it?
okay, and that's the end of that then.
Brilliant. That's really unlike Tyrrell Hatton to really lower the tone a little bit. Let's round it out on performances, guys. A couple of notables. Exactly. Max Homa was absolutely unbelievable. I thought the absolute sort of crowning moment really was on 18 in the singles against Fitzpatrick. That up and down was just absolutely out of this world. To have the stones to take a penalty drop from greenside, knock it to 8 feet, and then sink the putt was just that was unbelievable.
And he knew what was on the line as well. Like, missed that putt, and the Ryder Cup's gone. I mean, that's pretty ballsy, wasn't it? He was
pressure my short game.
He's grown on me enormously, like, because he, maybe a year or two ago, and he used to do like rate my swing on social media, and he'd like just basically roast people, and I thought it was all a bit like, oh, this is all a bit crass and try hard and stuff. But actually following him, like, he seems like a really decent bloke. Like, I really rate Homer.
Yeah,
a lot.
He backs it up with great play. He's not just a sort of
and quite humble.
He's not just a guy who's like a great social media personality and also on the PGA Tour. Like, he's a top player in the world.
And from one highly likable character, Bruce, to another. I mean, Patrick Cantlay as well. Just
Okay. What are we?
Let's come back to him because this is going to just this is going to occupy a bit. I think we should just finish off performances, but Cantlay's got to be the last because that is a natural segue into that whole circus. I think we need to just do the performances a bit more justice first. Just my opinion.
Okay, so a little bit's going to be said about the fact that with Liv, Brooks kind of got in on his own merit because he won a major. Would they have picked him? Don't know. Probably not. Europeans didn't have anyone from Liv. We had Brooks from Liv. Brooks Koepka 1 out of 5 out of 3. I mean, it was he's all going to be defined by that foursomes performance, I think, with Scheffler. But that was a shocker. There was something like 11 over through 9 or something weird like that.
Yeah.
Like, Brooks was no good, but then he sort of turned it on the singles. So
I just think he's a formidable guy to play against. I always look at Brooks when he's playing and think he just has like a pretty commanding presence on the golf course. And I think, match play just seems to produce very different characteristics in the way people play, or certainly in how they handle those sorts of moments. I mean, Rory played out of his skin under the most extreme pressure, and what he wouldn't give as well to do that on a major Sunday. I don't know.
Why is
certainly
that?
when he needs to. But you know what I mean? It seems to produce a different outcome. And I think, I look at Koepka in the same fashion. Just as a match play golfer, he must be insanely difficult to play against. He's so steely. He just goes about his business. The guy, I think he just has a presence around the golf ball where, I think I'm a big Brooks fan personally. He had a bad foursomes run out there. Okay, it's like 11 holes of fairly indifferent golf shots. But by and large, like, selecting him from Liv, bringing him across, just showed exactly that, okay, he's probably the best player on Liv this year, but, his golf more than warranted a selection within that side.
And I think the foursomes thing, by the sounds of things, it was like sprung upon them at the last moment. I don't know if you guys read about that. Like, they'd always planned to play together in the four balls, but then I think the foursomes thing, because Sam Burns was so poor on Friday morning, they sort of subbed in Koepka in his place.
Yeah, but
and
you'd assume,
they just didn't gel.
This is captaincy stuff, because you'd assume that
Yeah.
contingencies put in place, like, oh, if this isn't going well, then you'll play with this person. Like, well, but speaking about the foursomes, and I know we're digressing from performance, I apologize, but this rhetoric around about Europeans just being better foursomes players, I don't get it. We don't play any more foursomes than anybody else,
They do play it growing up, though, to be fair.
Well, they might play it.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
don't know
No,
how much that
if
sticks
you've
at
had a
an elite
decent
level.
amateur career, Jack Lees, home internationals, all that sort of stuff, there's quite a bit of foursomes in the amateur game in Europe, more so than I believe there is in the States. I don't think there's any foursomes golf in the NCAA.
But they're the
From what I
best
gather.
players in the world. Like, what can be difficult about it?
But the NCAA is like it's a massive team dynamic. So, I mean, look, most of these guys are all playing, US college golf, aren't they? So I don't think that's really a fair excuse. For some reason or another, Team Europe just seems to have way more camaraderie amongst the team and a sense that they're playing for other people, which is very different to the way that, to the golf they play, the other 104 weeks or whatever between Ryder Cups.
Do you think if
it's an
Europe,
individual sport, and you totally get the sense that every player on the European side is playing for the other guys, and I'm sure the US side would say the same, but it seems to bring out a different result. We're saying this now with the hindsight of a great weekend's performance, and we weren't saying this 2 years ago at Whistling Straits, whatever, were we? So I don't know.
Well, that's why it's all become about winning an away Ryder Cup,
Yeah,
which is what McIlroy talked about. And as far as I'm aware, only McIlroy and Rose have actually won an away Ryder Cup.
just McIlroy,
Well, Rose was there in Medina.
just McIlroy and Rose.
So I think that's kind of why it's such a big accomplishment now, is because the last few Ryder Cups have all just gone to the home advantage. And when you look at the crowds there, and maybe this is a separate point once we've dealt with performances fully, but the crowd is a huge advantage. They just have a massive impact. I don't know whether it's actually gone too far. I know I'm that martyr for the amateur game, no fist pumps or no excessive fist pumps.
You're on
and,
the Ryder Cup.
sort of nice, chilled out, kind of respectful, conduct or
you
whatnot.
were canvassing
Whereas-
for a jacket and tie lunch between the foursomes and the four ball, weren't you? I think.
So, maybe I am just being a bit grumpy and thinking that it's gotten out of hand, but there's no denying that the thing is of a bigger scale, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the crowd's a key part of that, and they are the 13th man. So that's why it's it's going to have a huge impact, isn't it?
Yeah, I just dwell on that. Like the pressure that the Americans are under on that Sunday and the treatment they're getting from the crowd is absolutely unrelenting. I mean, Max over that chip, whoever in the crowd is like, don't stick it in the water, Max, whatever. There's so much going on around the shots. I have no idea how they can manage to contain it for 3
must
days.
say-
Like, it's crazy.
Not credit where credit's due, but anti-credit where anti-credit's due. Like, certainly the British media tend to give the Americans a really hard time for how they behave. The American supporters a hard time about how they behave in Ryder Cups and stuff. I thought that was the most partisan a crowd. Like, it was like you'd expected it, for lack of a better term, an American crowd to be. It was raucous. It wasn't like we've always been known for oh yes, clap everything. It wasn't that.
No, I agree with you. From what I could see on TV and hear on TV, it was so partisan, and I don't. Again, am I going to sound really grumpy and like a bit of a martyr for the amateur game? I just don't like people clapping when your oppo hits the shot in the water or duffs a chip,
Or misses a putt.
I don't. Was that the case 10 years ago?
No,
15
definitely
years
not.
ago?
Although they do talk about the year that the Nicholas Jacqueline, the concession, that was played under extremely bad spirits, I believe, at Royal Birkdale. I think that at the time was, now maybe that's nothing like what we're looking at here, but I think there was all sorts of stuff going on. Like,
So
I'm
maybe it's
sure
always
someone
been-
told me about them treading on the opposition's ball, like spectators and stuff. But look, this is a controversial take here, guys, but the Ryder Cup only comes around every 2 years, right? The players seem to know what they're letting themselves in for. I don't think it is the sportsmanship that anyone would take out into the course with them. I don't think it's indicative of golf at all, but it does make the event really spicy. Like, all of that does make it amazing. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah. Like,
I'm not going to lie. The Joe LaCava stuff is dreadful behavior. But in some weird way, it actually makes the event better, you know?
I was just refreshing my social media feeds. Yeah. Looking for that. If we could get more footage of McIlroy just being restrained in the car park by Shane Lowry.
Yeah, those BMW i Series, the tailgate on the BMW i Series is beautiful, isn't it? I've seen that. But the closing mechanism, it's so smooth. But it kind of makes the event what it is.
Yeah.
You know, like I think if you took it to, you know, if you took it to and said, well, right, okay, well, look, we're going to adopt the same principles the spectators have at any other PGA Tour event, I think you have a significantly diminished product. I don't think it is the quote unquote right behavior on a golf course to be, you know, applauding bad shots and looking for failure. But it does build so much of the theatre. I mean, seeing holes like 16 and the outcome, you know, you feel the nerves for the players, and you just don't get that really on anything like the same scale.
I think there's an element of safety in numbers as well for the spectators. Like at the Walker Cup, I know it was a record Walker Cup at St Andrews, 14,000 people or so. We were right up there next to them on the fairways, and it was all totally respectful, polite behaviour. Whereas at the Ryder Cup, you've got hundreds of thousands of people, and I think it's just that, group mentality of like, let's all go bananas now and start, you know, clapping people and saying, don't hit it in the water, like, you know, don't shank this one. Like, I think it's just that collective hooliganism that you get when you're in a crowd of 100,000 people rather than a crowd of a few hundred people around the fairway, you know.
But it does make the event great. I think that's the point I would make.
Should we talk about that incident on 18?
Yeah, so
I don't know what to say on it other than, I mean, like, go on, you go for it, boys. I'm not sure how much more we can pour onto this.
We can add to the dialogue. Well, I mean, in many ways, this is the big storyline, isn't it, of this Ryder Cup is the division in the US team room. I think the knives started to come out a little bit, didn't they, on Friday afternoon when they'd gone 6.5 to 1.5 down.
Yeah, it was Jamie Weir's Twitter, wasn't it? That did it.
That came out Saturday morning, but Friday afternoon, Zach Johnson was like, we're battling some issues, bit of health stuff, some congestion. I mean, he's talking about blocked noses. That was unbelievable. And then Saturday morning, all of a sudden, it was like, now there's division in the team room. And it was Jamie Weir who said that Cantlay wanted to be paid. He wasn't wearing a hat in protest. And he and Schauffele had their own separate arrangements. And that's kind of where it started. And by Saturday afternoon, that had gone around the whole of Marco Simone, and all of the spectators were giving Cantlay grief about it, weren't they?
Which was brilliant, to be fair. It was brilliant to watch.
Yeah, which is unsubstantiated as well. I mean, like, although he's been questioned and he's okay, what I'm thinking is happening is he said two things completely independently. I don't want to wear a hat, and I think we should be paid. And someone's put two and two together, and it's like, oh, he's not wearing a hat because he wants to be paid. And when they're asking him about whether you should get paid or not, he's just like basically dodging questions and saying, do I need to talk about this and all that stuff. Do I think he was I mean, if he's actually protesting by not wearing a hat, he's an absolute imbecile, because it's the most stupid protest.
Can I just interject though? It doesn't excuse Joe LaCava's behaviour, and I don't think it's really a reason for it. I think Joe LaCava got swept up in quite a lot of anti-American animosity out in the course over 2 days, and it probably just boiled over at a point that felt incredibly pivotal in the context of the overall match. Regarding Cantlay and money, I think pretty much all the time someone from Team USA raises the point they don't get paid. Again, I don't think they should get paid. I'm 100% in that camp. But it turns out the PGA Tour benefit to the tune of $350 million.
Yeah,
from the Ryder
I'm
Cup.
against. I think the players should get paid.
You think they should?
No.
Look,
I don't think I'm not saying you couldn't pay them. I mean, look, there's $350 million gets paid back. It wouldn't be the end of the world to give them $1 million. But
I'm not saying they shouldn't get paid.
I don't think they should.
But I completely understand a position of being frustrated when the prime product of the Ryder Cup is 24 blokes battling it out. And yeah, they do it for their nation, all that stuff. Brilliant. But someone or someones are earning a boatload of cash out of that. Like someone is taking tons of money. And if it's not the players, then what's it all about? Who is it going to? Like, if it's the PGA Tour, because the PGA Tour will get paid appearance fees because they've released them to go play, and it's like,
he's a smart bloke, Cantlay. Let's give him that. He's a smart bloke. He's always been known as being pretty tuned into the commercial aspects of golf, professional golf. I agree with both of you, really. I guess I can see how Patrick Cantlay and a lot of other players, both on the European side, although we never hear it, and certainly on the US side, would have a gripe about executives associated with the Ryder Cup getting paid a shed load of money. Now, I actually don't know if they do or not. I don't know if Guy Kinnings, who's the head of the Ryder Cup for Europe, is taking home millions of dollars for his involvement in that. I have no idea. I don't know if his American counterpart does as well. I could see, though, there would be a huge amount of resentment if that was the case.
No, but somebody is, though, because that money's got to go somewhere, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, so, but okay, so for a start, each player, if I'm not mistaken, gets $200,000 to give to a charity their own donation, or of their own choosing, excuse me.
We should be a registered charity, boys.
There's also a huge amount put back into like grassroots development of the game, PGA professionals in America. So if it's going towards those purposes, it's like, well, yeah, Patrick, you probably benefited from that grassroots development yourself. And, who's saying we shouldn't support PGA pros who are doing a great service to the sport all over the world? I think, everyone should be able to get on board with that, particularly someone like Cantlay, who, let's face it, won $18 million in the FedEx Cup a couple of years ago. He's probably won over $10 million on course this year. It's like, I don't think it's you really need to scrape around for another $1 million or $2 million.
I think it's more like the meaning of it. It's like the someone is doing the work and someone else is getting paid. I don't think it is the money. I just think it's the kind of the sentiment.
So the issue here is it's not the debate as to whether players should or shouldn't, because frankly, if for the last 30 years or since whenever modern era Ryder Cup we select, if the players were always paid, we wouldn't be arguing that they shouldn't get paid. The issue is that he's taken a stance and decided to protest against the headwinds of not getting paid. That's the fact, because it's the fact that the guy makes so much money that just makes it such an unsavory thing to do. Yeah. Like if they were getting paid, we wouldn't be sitting there going, this is ridiculous, they get paid to play in this. But it's because they don't get paid, and he's gone through the act of sort of putting his neck out there. I saw a wonderful tweet before we started this pod from Garrett, the Fried Egg, who said that ironically, Patrick Cantlay's protest had probably done more to market himself as a player and his endorsement deals than any appearance fee probably would have done. It's probably true. He's put himself right in the media stage for a solid weekend over the biggest event, in golf. But yeah, it just doesn't sit well, does it? When you've got a guy who's probably cleared 100 mil in the last few years across on and off course earnings, to be seen to be moaning about not getting paid to play in this. And particularly you got players like Keegan Bradley and others that would love to play in it. Just doesn't quite hit the right notes, does it? But then
he'll be benefiting as well from like sponsorship packages that undoubtedly will specify that he gets a bonus if he gets picked for the Ryder Cup. His Goldman Sachs sponsor on his hat, and Titleist, and all the other people that sponsor him will almost certainly have those provisions in his contract. And he's
which is the same as the Koepka and Liv thing, which was ultimately, I think that was the sort of the that was the issue, wasn't it?
Point, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's overly principled people, I guess, really. And could you say the same about Liv? I don't want to turn this into a podcast about Liv because we've done, that's not where we want to go. But that's kind of where Phil Mickelson probably was at with Liv. Is like, yeah, I'm making a load of money on the PGA Tour, but I think Jay Monahan and some of these other fat cat PGA Tour executives are taking home more than they should be, and there's a lot more value in there for the players. So, I'm going to try and get this Saudi thing off the ground. And I think this is probably another extension of that with Patrick Cantlay. The funny thing is Cantlay was like the villain here, but I think Xander Schauffele is like just the exact same, really. And there's not been much coverage of it in the UK media, but certainly on the continent, like Schauffele's dad, Stefan, was going absolutely nuts and would try and speak to as many different reporters and people as he possibly could to say that Xander feels the exact same way. It's a disgrace the way that they're treated. He's no respect for the PGA of America or the PGA Tour. The players should absolutely be getting paid. I mean, it's remarkable, really, that Schauffele's dad was just sounding off over the weekend.
That's remarkable.
The bit I don't get is it's not like they're handcuffed and marched over to Rome. Like, they're asked and they say yes. Like, if you feel that strongly about it, don't go. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Anyway, we started.
That would be a proper protest. If you're like, no, unless you're going to pay me, I'm not going. That would be a real protest.
Yeah.
But we got bogged down in the Cantlay debate, and actually, it was the Joe LaCava stuff that was really poor behaviour. That was just.
Everyone accepts that, though. I mean, everyone accepts that, don't they?
There's nothing else to add on that.
I think though we have covered performance and raucousness. Shall we?
Can I just say one more thing on Patrick Cantlay?
Yeah.
He's getting married today.
I know.
Congratulations.
In Rome.
Nuts, isn't it?
So I think that probably tells you all you need to know about how he values the Ryder Cup. Is that he literally booked his wedding ceremony the day after the conclusion of the singles.
Yeah, but he doesn't, does he? So like, I was going to think like he was probably like preempting not winning and getting smashed and being hungover on Wednesday, but he doesn't booze, does he? So it's perhaps he thought it would just be a nice thing.
Not?
Maybe it'd be a nice thing to celebrate his wedding that they won the Ryder Cup. Who knows?
Yeah, I just think that whole line, that defense of no, the team spirit was great. We've never been part of a stronger team, even when they were getting thumped. It just didn't stack up to me.
Yeah, which brings it really nicely across to the captains. Let's talk Zach. After the morning foursome, Zach said he's never been prouder of a team. I mean, when you've been dusted 4-0, it's like, or 0-4. How do you suppose if you look at it from the American side? I thought he was weird this week. I thought he exemplified all the opposite traits to how Luke Donald, and this is so easy to say in hindsight. I get it.
Yeah.
But Luke Donald looked like he's full of class, looked like he planned stuff, looked like he thought ahead about stuff, just seemed calm and collected. And Zach just seemed very reactionary. I mean, I don't know how else you would be if you get thumped and you're not expecting it. But
I don't even know if I'd say reactionary, because he didn't actually really react to anything. He just sort of said, yeah, I'm really proud of the team, and we can turn this around, and I'm going to stick to my guns. Basically,
I just think they're out to get for you. I think they're out to get you after a 4-0 thumping in the first sitting of it, aren't they? The problem is he's got quite a few sort of David Brent characteristics in him. Zach Johnson, like he is like he's like an American love child of sort of David Brent and Alan Partridge, all wrapped up in a world-class golfer. It's quite a strange combo, and you wheel him out with not a great track record over here. High expectations from people about the American side, and the guns very quickly turned on him. And from watching pretty much every interaction he had this week, I thought it was piss weak. Everything he said, like I'm not gonna lie. I thought what he said always felt like quite a strange answer versus what Luke Donald would have said or anyone else. But was he a bad captain? I don't know. He didn't get that from the post-mortem they did in the press conference. They seem to stand by him a little bit, which, previous Ryder Cup sides haven't done when they've been on the receiving end of a bit of a thumping. So, I mean, look, it's speculation, isn't it? But he didn't strike me as somebody that was going to be particularly confidence-inspiring, really.
Mm.
It seemed like he just did the job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Rather than actually showing some initiative. Like there's all this chat about Luke Donald getting motivational videos in to show to the players that's been made, away from the site by their families. And okay, that's been done at other Ryder Cups, but he honoured that. And then, there were a couple of scouting trips that he's done. He devised this system of trying to play 3-hole sprint matches so that the European teams could really focus on 3-hole sprints, trying to get up and maintain momentum, all of which sounds like good stuff. And obviously Eduardo Molinari, actually, shout out to him because he's a sort of unsung hero of the Stato and, had some of that data behind the foursomes pairings and putting everyone off, which looked to work wonders when you were staring at a 6.5, 1.5 leaderboard on day one. Whereas Zach Johnson, Cantlay, Schauffele, Spieth did not travel with the scouting party a few weeks ago. That's well known. Spieth had a child. Cantlay and Schauffele, for the reasons we've just explained, seem a little bit disillusioned with the whole event. So that's a massive red flag, I think, from a culture standpoint, number one. And number two, to not have 9 of your players playing in the 5 weeks since the FedEx Cup concluded.
That's the killer.
He's
That
just
is
an
the
absolute
killer.
killer. And to our credit, we actually called that out, didn't we?
Though?
Yeah, 100%.
Because if they'd have won, we would all been saying it was genius. Oh, we're going to rest them all. Now as we're overplayed. I do not think this is just a victim of circumstance.
No, absolutely not. To be fair, we called that when we did our little recap of the BMW. We thought, this is just a bit strange, isn't it? That not a single American has come over and played in this or in the Italian Open. JT famously was given a lot of praise back in 2018 when he was the top point scorer, admittedly on a losing US side at Le Golf National because he played the French Open at the Ryder Cup venue. None of the American team did that. But yeah, 100% taking 5 weeks off is bonkers. You would never do that for a major. You would never do that for a major. You might take a week off.
You wouldn't do the club championship.
There's no player taking 3, 4, 5 weeks off before a major championship. So why would you do it for a Ryder Cup? The only people who played were Homer and Thomas at the Fortinet, and there was Brooks played a live event. And I just think that's such low-hanging fruit. Zach Johnson to not bring that up.
Would that require Zach Johnson to basically shift the PGA Tour structure?
But this is the point of scheduling, isn't it? That is the point of what they're moaning about, how it's a difficult week within the schedule and where it sits, and also then how the week runs for them.
Having said that, there is a Rolex Series event that they probably could all play if they wanted to.
Yeah, I can't imagine if the DP World Tour was approached and said, I just want to roll out, 10 of the best 30 US players in the world. Whatever. Sorry, 10 of the 30 best players in the world who are all American. Rephrase that. At Wentworth, I'm pretty sure the DP World Tour would welcome that with open arms.
Yeah, so I suppose there's a couple of things in here, though, isn't there? Just practically, you've got 24 players, but 12 of those didn't know they were playing until a few weeks before, really. And at that point, they're fairly committed within their schedules, I think. I don't know. Maybe they can just pull the plug and say, sod that. Right, training camp starts in Italy and we're going there 2 weeks before. We're just going to get absolutely dialed and we're all going to play at Wentworth. I mean, hats off to them if they did it. And maybe you might see through the post-mortem of this, that's what the Europeans do over at Bethpage. They go, do you know what, sod it. We're all going to make sure we play in this event and then we're going to spend this time in training camp and they'll forego a week's
takings.
There
are no events at this time of year in America. That's the problem. Because they have their FedEx finals and then there's a big gap in the schedule until the Ryder Cup.
But it does feel like it does feel like that's the key issue there, right? It's easy to point to, you can speculate about the dressing room or how well he handles the relationship.
I think it's easy to attack because it's different. I think we would all been saying it's inspired if the US won. It's so easy to take aim at it now. And maybe you're right. Maybe it is right. We'll never know.
It looks like it. There's compelling evidence there, though, in that they were dreadful for the first day. That's where they lost it. The rest of it, they halved. 3-1, 3-1 on Saturday. Went either way. And then 6-all in the singles. So that first day was killer. And that's, I think you put that down to competitive sharpness.
It's such a curse, captaining a Ryder Cup side away from home, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because the truth is, yes, don't think Zach Johnson was a good captain. Observation, based on what you read, doesn't strike me as an inspiring man. But nonetheless, you go and take a thumping in a Ryder Cup, and you are labelled an idiot. And that's the fact of the matter.
Just a quick one on Luke. Did we expect him to be as calm and assured and as wonderful as he was?
Again, no, we're kind of falling into the same bias. But yeah, I mean, he seemed to do a brilliant job, didn't they? Everyone seemed to be, so happy with everything he'd done. People couldn't say enough good things. It's easy to do that, though, when you're picking up the Ryder Cup with 16.5 points in the chamber as well, isn't it? But, it did seem like he had all the players pointing in the right direction. But how much of this is chicken and egg, I honestly couldn't tell you. But,
okay.
I think that's kind of post-mortem from my end, really.
Yeah, well, one last thing. The course. Are we probably one of the better Ryder Cup courses we've had in Europe for a while? I thought the finish was fabulous. 16, 17, 18. It offered drama. It was, in fact, 15 was really hard. So like 15, 16, 17, 18 was good finish. Nice elevation.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought, actually the drama of it, the 16th hole being a drivable four that was made drivable the whole week. For me, it was summed up in the Fleetwood Fowler match, really. Fowler just wiped one into the drink, and Fleetwood, I think there was a little bit of an exchange with Finno as to whether he just throttled back. And Finno said, you got to just step up and hit a shot there. And the guy's slotted driver onto the green. Like, that was just unbelievable watching, because we were all there thinking the same thing. Like, holy shit, does he drop back to an iron? Or
but
does
it also
he just extends,
it extends to the match before, where you had Homer and Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
When Fitz dumped in the water, then Homer followed him in. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I know.
What is going on?
I thought the course was brilliant. Like, I was quite happily doing the armchair, taking the easy road of saying, yeah, it's just gonna be another Ryder Cup course, water, long rough, got it, yada yada yada. It was a brilliant spectacle. Like, you wouldn't change anything about that, really, in terms of the way the holes played. And you need to have these like really, really big binary outcomes with golf shots, I think, because it really adds to the theatre. It really doesn't demand a sort of a nuanced course where it's just like, decimalization of score variances. You need these massive, massive changing points in the round, and the sequence of short fours and long fours. And it got me thinking about when we were at the Walker Cup. Do you remember on the 18th green a few weeks ago, watching them all play in? And friend of the pod, Sam Cooper, made a really good remark. He said, what do you think is the hardest golf hole this week at the World Cup? And everyone said, I think it's the road hole. 17 is probably playing as tough as anything. And he made a fair point, which was, actually, I'd argue it's maybe the 18th is the hardest. Because it's not necessarily the difficulty to par, it's the difficulty in the context of the match and the expectation. And then with the same point in mind, 16 was a hideously difficult golf hole, because really you had to birdie it. If you didn't birdie it, you were going backwards. And I think that's what makes it such a great course for these types of events and for that spectacle. There was just no way you could take an easy four. You couldn't hit 7-iron or 6-iron down there, wedge on, take you four, because you had to go for 3 or you were moving backwards.
Ironically,
I thought that was a good take of Cooper's, that one. I think it was
good. He's a
that's
clever
worthy
man.
of a retort.
He is a clever man. Ironically, if that 16th was a par 3, everyone would say it was hideous, horrible, terrible.
Of course they would.
Terrible golf hole.
Of course it is.
Wouldn't they?
Of course they would.
A 300
There's
yard
also
par 3, they'd all be like, this is an absolute joke. But it's exactly the same hole.
But in the same
That's
way,
why par's
15, I think,
vulgar.
Exactly.
but no, 15 was the tough one, wasn't it? Uphill,
Yeah, that's
slight
right,
dog
yeah.
leg to right.
Very
Again,
big
that's a
elevation.
brilliant golf hole, because there's such a massive difference in the outcomes that's happening there. If they got their drive down there and into shape, they had a good look at the green. If they didn't, so many of those players missed the green. And I thought it makes it such a compelling TV product. Obviously the flip side of that is, to play at anything like that length, it is a completely unenjoyable experience for the amateur golfer. But it's death by bogey and missing greens, and a pretty tough existence. But for what we're watching, it was a brilliant setup.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you summed it up perfectly there. And I actually wouldn't walk past the 17th and the 18th either, because
I thought 17
having that
was great.
variation. I mean, 17 yielded some amazing moments. Rahm nearly having a hole in one on Saturday morning was right up there. And McIlroy hitting that chip. Oh, that was nuts as well, wasn't it?
Not his chip. I think on the first day, on the Friday, where McIlroy stuck it to about a foot when he needed to. Oh.
Yeah, when they won there. Cantlay made an unbelievable birdie, didn't he? And then 18 was just like a pretty long and brutal par 5 where a lot of players were going for it. And like Homer summed it up there, really. Hit a sort of slightly bailout 3-wood, didn't he, from 270? Not that bad a shot. And you feel like week in, week out on the PGA Tour, he'd be getting that up and down for birdie 7 or 8 times out of 10. He's had to take it unplayable. Like, that's just real high drama. So yeah,
I'd like to go back and watch a bit of the Ryder Cup at Valderrama. I've never really watched that one in any detail, but again, it'd just be I'm just thinking about these sort of continental Ryder Cups. I think that half the battle is, I mean, you look at, from what I remember of Celtic Manor, it was a bit dreary, it was a bit damp. Having it in Italy, south of Rome, there's 100% certainty of firm, hot weather conditions. It's fiery. And you just don't get that in September in Britain, do you? I hate to say it. You just don't. No. There is a 0% chance of firm and fast in September, 100% chance of drizzle.
Just a quick one on moments of the Ryder Cup. A few that stick to mind. One of them brought to you by Sky when they put the stat up on something on the 14th hole or something, saying 50% of people who hit the longest drive win this hole, which is quite fabulous.
Oh, there were a few of those, weren't they? They were so bad. They were so bad, weren't they? 80% of drives that are 330 yards or more go on to win this hole.
Yeah, I've got to dig the one out from, I don't know why I keep giving them plugs on this, but Andy Johnson at the Fried Egg dug one out, and I think it was sponsored by like Cap Gemini or something.
Which I still don't know what they did. They had a million adverts, but I don't know what they do.
Here we go. So what the percentages don't add up to 100%. What's the outcome? It's Cap Gemini projecting the outcome in the Aberg-Koepka match. 0% Aberg, 1% tie, Koepka 97%. Brought to you in partnership with Cap Gemini. Brilliant.
I mean, how much are those sponsors paying to get that sort of endorsement there? It's just laughable, isn't it? The other one was the Aon Nicholas Jacklin Award, wasn't it? When they were just reading out letters that someone at Aon's marketing department had written out for them or something.
Yeah.
Who's going to win the Nicholas Jacklin Award and the Aon Risk Reward in the same season?
But the tweet of the week has got to go to Paddy Power, though, hasn't it? That said that Scheffler and Koepka should win the Nicholas Jacklin Award for conceding every hole on their foursomes.
Oh, there was so many great moments.
And there was that bad look from Spieth in the foursomes where he lobbed it in the bund, and there was begging for a plug lie, and Tommy Fleetwood was just stood there with his arms behind his back.
I've actually lost count of how many times I've received the video of Shane Lowry chipping from wherever it is, and he's just about to walk in on the shot. In fact, I don't know, Tom, can you add the audio into it?
I think just play it and put it next to the microphone. We'll get it. But it is.
Don't move, please. You're making more fucking noise than anyone else.
The shame of that, and I must say, the shame of that is that video, if you've not seen it, is shot through the heads of about 4 or 5 kids. And I know it's the 15th hole on the final day of the Ryder Cup. I get it. But, like, you're still a role model, you know? Like, there's still
my role model.
He was a funny one this week, Lowry. He was so up for it, wasn't he? He was just like,
he was pumped.
He was almost putting more effort into just celebrating for the tee than like, you know, his own golf and playing. Like he obviously won one, tied one with Spieth, and he lost one Saturday morning. But it's just nuts. Yeah, like the enthusiasm,
amped, wasn't he? Yeah, he was absolutely amped. But
like, I'm not going to say he got the better of him because he played well, but it felt like the occasion overcame him slightly. Like he just seemed.
No, I don't know. I think you need a
wired.
He's a bit of a talisman, isn't he? He's a big character. Yeah. Great week. Great week. Just watching on TV.
Best week
page in
watching
2
Yankees.
years, boys. Question.
Yeah, I'd love it if they gave Luke Donald a run at this. I don't get the modus operandi the last few years of just taking it in turns with various European Ryder Cup players to become captain. I just think it's been proven so hard to win an away Ryder Cup. Put Donald, in the captaincy role again and let him have a run at it at Bethpage.
He's got a young side that would actually, a lot of those names you think, Rose, probably not. But there's a lot of names in there that you think are probably going to have a really good chance of making that side in 2 years' time.
Not
Yeah,
Bob Mack unless he wins another competition.
Yeah. Unless he finds another ticket to play in the Ryder Cup out of a packet of Frosties.
See,
Yeah.
I can't tell
Bob
whether you're
Mack will
joking or not.
No, he is. It's
No,
pure
it's-
sarcasm. For our American listeners, this is sarcasm.
No, we
Like,
love Bob Mack.
Yeah,
But
he
it's
was
the way he was
100% good
treated
enough.
all week.
Yeah.
He was treated like he was the competition winner at all times. Even
Yeah.
the camera angles were like, I think they'd set it up to try and make him look diminutive.
Yeah, they
Um,
shot from above him, pointing down like he was a child, like he was at Willy Wonka's factory. It was just.
Yeah, I
But
feel
think
quite
about it.
strong
You've
about
got a young side. You've got a side that's probably going to be, certainly in the conversation, at least 10 of those players when we roll around in 2 years' time. And yeah, like I'm 100% in favor of not changing the Ryder Cup captain every single time it comes around.
Should be a 4-year tenure. I'm going to put it out there. You should get a home and away go at it.
I think you could bring someone back in off the bench who's done it before, or I don't know. Like I just don't think it needs to be ceremonial. It's now their turn and they face off against each. I'm sure you can stage manage it. I'm sure when time comes, Tiger and Rory or something like that will be opposing captains and stuff. But I think you look at it and go, well, yeah, he did a great job. Why on earth wouldn't he want to do that in 2 years' time?
Controversial take. Do you think Tiger will actually be a Ryder Cup captain? The guy has only ever won one.
I think I think he might be asked. I'll be honest. I think they might ask him.
So he's played 97, 99, 2002, 4, 6, 10, 12, 18. He's won one of those.
Yeah, but he's the best player pretty much to ever live.
Mm. Yeah.
It would be rude if he wasn't. And you can't just be like, oh, mate, you were gash in the Ryder Cup, so we're not going to ask you to do it. It's just like...
Yeah.
Nah,
I think we all agree, though. They should be given more than one.
I can't find
Check.
an argument for why you wouldn't. Like, I think the great thing about podcasts is we have some debate and back and forward, but I think we're looking at each other here going, violently agreeing with each other.
They probably feel they want to share it around, don't they? There's other people that...
Yeah, like get Ronan Rafferty in. He's the best player never to have captained a Ryder Cup side. I can't believe I still hope that he could be doing it at Bethpage. But, if it's not Rafferty, then, I really hope it's going to be Luke Donald. And I was actually not a massive Luke Donald fan before the end of the week, which shows you what a suck I am for these things. But
he's not. He's a romantic.
And anything, thank you, Thomas. Anything else to put a ribbon on this podcast?
No, I have a long drive ahead of me, so I am going to hit the road.
Don't spoil it too much, but you look like you're wearing a nice top.
We've got new merch on the way. Highly likely.
You've
to
both
land.
taken a little sort of, company director's perks package or whatever. What's the
Benefit in kind.
thoughts?
This fabric is absolutely magnificent. No, we've got a new merch. It's coming out, likely to come out on the 1st of November. So we've got a little bit of time to go, but there's going to be all sorts of stuff there's going to be hitting the shelves if any of you are so interested in that sort of thing. I'm currently
warm
wearing,
gear.
I'd say it's like a day-to-day hoodie, would you say?
Yeah, it's
We
like
don't
a
endorse
college
hoodies
hoodie,
on golf courses.
but it's
Yeah, fine.
extremely high quality college
Yeah,
hoodie.
this would be like just the day-to-day hoodie. It's a gorgeous fabric. And
it's not made by Loro Piani, is it? Or what, is it Loro
No.
Piani?
But
It's
it's also
3,000.
sporting a mark that is unseen before. And that we'll go into in more detail at a later date, I'm sure. But, gentlemen, do we have anything more to add?
Just
To
many
advise our
congratulations to Patrick Cantlay and his new wife. I hope you had a great celebration on this Monday after the Ryder Cup.
You'll probably listen to this in the morning, I'd have thought.
I've not seen much social media action of people at his wedding in Italy.
I'm pretty sure it's just Schauffele who got the nod, and that was it. Maybe.
Can you imagine?
Jada Carver's probably there,
Carver.
waving his hat around.
And that bloke still drying off and jumping in the pond on 16, there to witness it. He's been drafted in off the streets and given a few
That was
hundred
David
euros to
Faraty,
do
wasn't it?
Oh, well.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening. As always, keep your eyes and ears peeled for anything that may come your way. Please do get in touch on @CookieJarGolf on any way that you see fit. And until next time.
Adios.
Watch this.